We're in the book of Joshua tonight in the first chapter. In order to understand this chapter and to set the background for it, I'll have to take you into a little preliminary discussion of it. You know, a year ago, last November or so, when our former president, Mr. Kennedy, was shot, I was out hunting with some of our people who are here in the auditorium tonight. And when the word flashed across the radio, we were in the cars that where we were sitting at the moment where I was sitting. They were out in the field hunting. When I heard that our president had been shot, I just couldn't believe it. And then I got to thinking, well, with our beloved president dead, just a young man, just full of vitality, leading our great nation, with this man dead, who has only led our country for a couple of years, where would we go? What would we do? And tonight, as we're thinking about the book of Joshua, this comes back to my mind because the first verse of this first chapter says, "Now after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord." Moses had led the children of Israel for how many years? For 40 years. It was a shock to our nation when President Kennedy was killed, was it not? Tremendous shock. To think that in our great nation there would be anybody who would deliberately want to go out and shoot a man, let alone shoot the president of these our United States. And it must have been a shock to the whole world. But suppose he had led our great nation for some 40 years. Suppose he had taken us through the very same background and experiences that some of the children of Israel had gone through. Suppose he had been the one who had set the original laws, like Moses brought down the 10 Commandments from the Mount. He instructed the people. He led the people when they were off out in left field. He'd pray for them. 40 years, Moses led these children of Israel. And then all at once, Moses is gone. That's why in this first verse there's a tremendous truth. Now after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord. It came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' minister, one who ministered with Moses, who served under Moses, saying, Moses, my servant, is what? Dead. This second verse, those words, if you could read them in the original text, are real mournful. They're real hard. Moses, my servant, is dead. I can't express it to you in English the way it is written in the original. It has all the pathos and all the feeling in it that 40 years of leadership have built up. After 40 years of leading the children of Israel, all at once, it says, Moses, my servant, is dead. What a tremendous thing this must have been to the people of Israel when they realized that this man of God, who had led them and put up with them so many years, was dead. You can hardly put yourself in the place of these people. Another great truth I noticed in here that it says, Moses, my servant, is what? You see, in the Old Testament, the men of God were servants of God in a perpendicular way. They were servants of God this way, perpendicular, and they were servants to their fellow men on an horizontal plane. Servants in a perpendicular relationship to God, and servants to their fellow men on an horizontal plane. While today, for those who are born again of God's Spirit, we are not servants of God. We are what of God? We are sons of God. We are sons of God in a perpendicular way, and servants on an horizontal plane to our fellow men. Now Moses, my servant, is dead. Even though Moses was not a son of God as far as being born again, he still believed God. And God gave him great revelation and great light for leadership. As a matter of fact, in the last chapter of the book of Deuteronomy, verse 9, 34th chapter, it's just a page before Joshua. And Joshua the son of Nun was full of the Spirit of what? For Moses had laid his hands upon him. The reason Joshua was full of the Spirit is because Moses had laid his hands on him. Moses was filled with the Spirit. He had the Spirit of God on him that God made available at that time. And therefore God was able to speak to him. He was able to walk with him. But upon Moses, it was only a gift for a period of time and only in a certain proportion. While in those of us who are born again of God's Spirit today, it is in fullness, and it's not just upon us for a period of time, it is in us. It is in us and stays there as long as you live. Now Joshua was a man filled with the Spirit. The Spirit of God was on him because Moses had laid his hands on him. God had instructed Moses to lay his hands on Joshua, and then Joshua got filled with the Spirit. Now Moses was dead. How would you like to have been in Joshua's shoes? No thanks, huh? Not me. 40 years of leading those stubborn Israelites, and I tell you they were stubborn. Read the Old Testament. Time and time and time again they revolted against the wisdom of Moses. Then Moses would intercede with God. And God would say, all right, do so and so, and I'll take care of them. Time and time again this occurs if you read the record. 40 years Moses put up with that. He was the only man who could stand them. Right. But the reason Moses could stand them is because Moses had a ministry in the world at that time to God's people. And when you've got a ministry, you can stand a lot of things that you couldn't stand if you didn't have one. You'd never put up with it. But Moses loved God and he loved the Word. And now this great Moses, who had led those people, was dead. And Joshua, one who had served under Moses, was to step in Moses' shoes and take over. I tell you, if you put yourself in Joshua's place, you can begin to understand why this great truth is written in these few verses in this opening chapter of Joshua. To think that Joshua now was to fill those shoes. It reminds me of the New Testament. Remember where Paul told Timothy to go to such and such a place and to minister at a certain place. The Apostle Paul himself had ministered to the people in that church, in that area. And now Paul was going on to another place. And he lets old Timothy stay there. And he says, Timothy, you fill my shoes and you feed the flock. How would you like to have been in old Tim's shoes? Not me. Not having followed upon the heels of that great man of God, the Apostle Paul, to think that Timothy could come along and step in Paul's shoes and take right up where Paul left off. It must have been a tremendous thing. Now the same with Joshua. The word of the Lord came, and you'll see why Joshua was able to take up where Moses left off. Sense knowledge-wise, it's impossible to step in the shoes of a man like Paul or to step in the shoes of a man like Moses. But God always makes available the power and the knowledge and the ability to carry out the job. He said in number 2, verse 2, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore, do what? Arise. He didn't tell him to sit now and mourn for another 6 years to lament the fact that Moses is dead. Because, ladies and gentlemen, whenever a man of God is dead, you can't stop. The things of God have to go on. Therefore, the message would be, Joshua, get up, arise, get on the move, start moving. Therefore, arise and go over this what? Jordan. The Jordan had encased them for many years. They were not able to cross the Jordan because God had never told Moses to take them across. They were full of sin and shortcomings and fear and everything else. They never got to cross. Now Moses, the great leader, is dead, and God says to Joshua, Joshua, get out of here. Get up. Quit stewing and fretting about my great servant Moses, who is dead. He's dead. He's dead. Now you take up. You arise, and this obstacle with which we have been confronted by the children of Israel, been confronted with for a long time, we're now going to go over. Arise and go over the what? Jordan. That's right. Thou and all this people unto the land which I do give them, even to the children of Israel.